Well, this up and down weather roller coaster continues. I guess it's back to wearing sweatshirt weather. So today I want to talk about grub control and trying to prevent any damage in your lawn that may happen from that. I had a few situations last year in my front yard. This is usually going to show up during the midsummer to late summer. Might see some brown patches in your yard. So what I want to do this year is make sure I get something down for that, and I'm going to work on that today. Got some mowing to do, many more updates on some things around here as well. So let's go for it.
Baby, I'm thriving. Oh yeah, I'm living my best life. I wake up with the sunrise. It does not look a thing like I thought that it would, but I've been getting my steps in, and I sleep with my best friend. It's the best that it has been in a long time. I'm living my best.
I may have spoken just a bit too soon on the sweatshirt weather. Well, evidently those last few mows with that Milwaukee mower were not at the exact same height as this Time Master, even though they were set to be about the same. So I have found in the past that I think the Time Master is slightly lower than it says. Either way though, whenever you're switching up mowers, it can be something that you have to look at just in terms of the height of cut. So I noticed in the first couple passes that I was cutting off a lot more grass than I was at the same setting on that other mower, so I just adjusted it up slightly. The other thing quickly as to why I just don't love tall grass anymore. Well, I don't know that I ever loved it, but it does better in a lot of situations, and you don't have to mow quite as frequently if you're cutting like I am on the front yard so low. But you see these areas like this, especially with the mower that's fairly heavy like the Time Master, and you have those wheels. They're a pretty narrow wheel like that. You're going to go over these sections. It's going to lay it down like this, and when the mower comes over this, if it's completely flattened like this, even though it has good suction, it just does not pull this all the way back up. So I actually have little spots throughout the yard like this where the grass has laid over, shades all of that out, and then you actually, if you inspect, have somewhat of a bare spot, if you will. So during the summer when it gets really humid, you need to water. A lot of times this also laying over like this underneath here, you're gonna see a lot of browning and some fungus problems, and that's just because it's not really letting that bottom part dry out. So you'll see some of this stuff doesn't get cut either. Not really a whole lot you can do on a taller cut, but that's just something I wanted to show you today as to what I'm already seeing with it. And we're not too far into the season, but the more you mow it and run over these areas with wheels and turn in certain areas, the more it gets flattened down, and that's just what I start to see over time. So over here, I'd call this more my experiment zone. This is cut down to 2 1/4, right around there, and you'll see how much tighter it looks, and also how much it doesn't seem to lay over as much at that height. Now this is tall fescue. I'm really liking that cut though at about that height, so I'm gonna keep experimenting with this, and if it continues to look good and it doesn't get too stressed out, I may start to move the backyard down in height of cut just slightly. Going into the hottest season, that's always difficult to do. It may have to stay where it is, but this section I like much better in terms of height of cut. Now this is one strip of reel mow. So every time I bring my reel mower up to the front yard, I just go one strip at the same height that I'm mowing up front, and you'll definitely notice the color doesn't hold as well. The actual texture of it, if you were here in person, it's still, you can tell, fescue. It does not look nearly as good as a rye or a bluegrass just because of the width of the blade. The texture look is not as good. All right, so there's a difference between grub killer and grub preventer. And the reason that we want to do this is because grubs can do major damage on your lawn, especially during the late summer and early fall when a lot of other things can be going on as well. Things like fungus or drought and heat stress. It's hard to see exactly what's going on when your grass might be somewhat brown anyway, especially on cool season lawns when you're in the middle of your summertime and there's a lot of stresses to the grass. It's hard to figure out exactly what's going on. One of the things that you can do is try to prevent that grub damage or insect damage from happening in the first place. That way you can hopefully take that out of the equation, so later in the summer, early fall, when those stresses are there, you'll be able to better diagnose what's going on and hopefully rule out that it's an insect or grub problem. Also, when you go to the store, there's a difference between grub killer and grub preventer. What I'm going to be using today with this product is to prevent grub damage damage as much as possible. Now, this is going after the prevention route, and a grub killer would be something that later on in the season, if you started to see some sort of damage and you didn't apply a preventer, or if for some reason you see a few damaged areas here and there, a grub killer will kill the active grubs that are there, usually within 24 hours. That's a different product than this. So you can see on the label, it needs to be watered in about an inch. So I'm going to be applying this before rainfall, and then if I need to, I can add extra irrigation, but we'll see how much rain we get. But you do need to make sure to activate it. It needs to get watered in. That way it goes to work now. You need to apply this before the early summer, because the stages of where grubs feed and lay eggs, as you can see here on the back of the bag, this needs to be put down before that summer cycle happens. On the back here, it says you apply 2.87 pounds of product per 1,000 square feet, and it gives you the settings for Scott spreaders. But of course, I don't have my Scott spreader here. I left it out at our new property. So this is also a good lesson today that if you do have a spreader where it doesn't have a setting on the bag, you can figure it out by pounds. Whether it's fertilizer or any granular product like this, it should tell you on the label how many pounds per 1,000 square feet need to go down on here. Since it says I need 2.87 pounds per 1,000, I'm just going to round that roughly to 3 just for math's sake. I have 4,000 square feet up front, so that means I need just under 12 pounds of this product to go evenly over that 4,000 square feet. This whole bag is 28.7 pounds, so I know that I need to put slightly less than half into this hopper, set it at a low setting, start spreading, and then make sure everything goes across that area evenly. So as I said here, I don't really know the setting on here, so I'm just going to start at a super low setting, see how well it spreads. If I need to adjust, then that's all I need to do. I just need to see if it's spreading evenly, how fast it's coming out. So start really slow. Make sure you don't start dumping product right onto the lawn right away. I think just slightly low, so I'm on a setting of 10. Probably go to like 12. Go with that. Love that super fine granular, spreads amazing through really any spreader, but worked really well with that super fine granular. So this setting, I walked in 2 directions and got everything spread evenly over that 4,000 square feet. That's about exactly what I would like. I want to keep it pretty low, and if I have to walk more, walking in 2 directions obviously is slightly more time, but you get better even coverage and make sure that everything looks good all the way across that 4,000 square feet that I was applying to today. That setting worked well for me, but remember, this all depends too on your walk speed, what your specific spreader is doing. So it's never a bad idea to sort of understand the math of the product and how much you're applying to make sure you're pretty close to those rates. One other thing to take note of, it says people and pets may re-enter the lawn once grass is dried. So I'm not going to apply to my backyard yet until later this evening. Let it sit there, get the water from the rain tomorrow, and the dogs won't be on that until that dries out. Also remember to make sure that you blow off your driveway and sidewalks. Make sure that product gets back onto the lawn and doesn't end up washing away down into the drains. A few other things I saw in the comments recently was my good buddy Will, who used to live across the street right over there, does not live there anymore. That was the yard that we did the renovation on, and so I wanted to give you just an update today as to what it looks like. It was finally mowed for the first time. There's nobody living there currently, so there was a company over here last weekend mowing this for the first time of the season. So you could definitely tell it's starting to look fairly dried out now, no water on it at all. And not bad though, really, considering no water, no sort of care, no mowing, anything going on over there. So that's the status of that. One thing though that I have been struggling with on my ryegrass this season, at least in the spring, has been grass tips that are shredding and not cutting clean. This tends to happen, I have found, on ryegrass in the early spring, usually when it's in the highest amount of flush, so you're getting tons of growth every day. Usually though, that doesn't last that long. It gets back into a phase where it's cutting clean. But this year, I would say 2 to 3 weeks or so, somewhere in there, I have not been able to cut this thing well, no matter what mower I use. I have a brand new reel, it's sharpened. I have a manual reel that's pretty much brand new that I've used on this, didn't make a difference. I was actually considering letting it grow out and doing a rotary mow on it if it wasn't going to start to shape up, but it's starting to get better now. The last 2 mows that I've done, I've been seeing much more improved normal conditions. I mentioned this in my podcast and on my Instagram that I saw a few people saying on there they were experiencing the same thing this spring. So just wanted to mention that if you're going crazy like I was with that whole scenario there and trying to figure out what to do, I really didn't do anything. I just let it clear up on its own using the same mower. It wasn't cutting clean before, now it is. No ideas. The interesting part that I couldn't get a clean mow on the ryegrass was that as soon as I would hit the bluegrass over here, I would get perfect cut. Bluegrass was cutting great, same mower, same sharpening. As soon as I hit this line, no problems cutting the bluegrass. So that was why I was ruling out that I was having a mower issue, a reel issue. Didn't know exactly what was going on, but if you look at the structure of bluegrass leaves, even in this area here that looks really nice and thick and lush, it is, but you will notice that the leaves are still wider for the most part in here than they are in the ryegrass. The ryegrass is a bunching type grass, so all those leaves bunch together. You get a lot of small, fine leaves in there. That just makes it more difficult to cut when it's super thick like that anyway. But especially in the springtime, I find that for some reason, just doesn't do well with getting a clean cut on that rye. It is sissy. So I think that it's going to show on camera yet today, but right here is the spot that is super dry. We hope you enjoy your gear from the new Keystone Light Real Tree Summer Camo Collection. Cheers, your friends at Keystone Light.